Is the Pope black? It's not really an issue that Catholics care about. Catholic means universal. The Catholic Church spans the whole globe. We venerate saints of all sorts of backgrounds. We venerate a guy named St. Moses the Black and have for about 1,700 years. Race is not a big issue for the Catholic Church, but it is a big issue for secular liberals whose opinions of the new Pope are now changing in real time based entirely on whether or not the Holy Father is an octoroon. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. The Libs really hate Afrikaners, the white South African farmers. They really hate them. There's a prominent TikToker who's threatening to murder them if they come here. Even the mainstream Libs on TV, they really don't like the white people in South Africa. Why? What did they ever do to you? I have quite a lot more to say. First, though, I want you to go to shopify.com/Knowles. You know, I've started a number of businesses over the years, from political media to cigars, and learned a lot along the way. Business is a complicated thing. One thing I really, really wish I had when I was starting my businesses is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the US. We even use it for our own DailyWire shop to make sure things are running smoothly and efficiently so you all can get the goods. And I can tell you, as one of the great salesmen of the DailyWire shop, Shopify makes it so easy. So you might be asking, what if I can't design a website? What if I'm worried people haven't heard of my brand? No problem. Shopify's got you covered from the start with beautiful, ready-to-go templates that match your brand style and help you find your customers through easy-to-run email and social media campaigns. If you need a hand with everyday tasks, their AI tools created specifically for commerce can help enhance product images, write descriptions, and much, much more. Plus, their award-winning customer support is available 24/7 to share advice if you ever get stuck. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S. That is shopify.com/Knowles. Shopify.com/Knowles. There are very few occasions in 2025 when one can use the word octoroon. But I guess in day 8 of talking about the new Pope, the Libs are making us talk about that because they've discovered that the Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, might be slightly black. And this is changing the Libs' opinion of the Pope from skeptical or negative to good.
There's one other thing that's also very interesting to me because President Trump, as you remember, called Haiti a certain type of country. As it turns out, our new American Pope has Haitian and black roots. So we actually have a black Pope. Apparently, it's like chef's kiss for me. So apparently, both of his maternal grandparents are described as black, Haitian, or mulatto in several census documents. And on their marriage license, the grandfather's birth place is Haiti, listed as Haiti. Her birthplace is listed as born in New Orleans. They were identified as people of color, but in 1920, when they migrated to Chicago, the census reflected their race as white.
So I'm loving everything about this Pope.
I'm really enjoying it.
You couldn't script this. They say, the Pope, whatever. I don't really know about the Catholic faith or what he believes or his views on social issues or LGBT or this. But I found out he has a single drop of black blood in him. So now I love him because I hate white people and I love black people. So now I like the Pope. You're telling me, hold on. You're telling me that the Holy Father, Pope Leo, can wear traditional vestments, can speak in Latin, can sing the Regina Coeli at the Vatican, can oppose LGBTism and all the other kinds of social ideologies that the Catholic Church has always opposed. He can do all of those things and he just has to be slightly swarthy. Deal. Where do I sign? I'm in. That sounds great to me, man. The other irony, of course, is that in this papal conclave, the cardinal that many, if not most, of the conservatives were pulling for to become the next pope is Cardinal Sarah, who is quite black. He's not just a little bit black. He's all the way black because he was one of the most traditional cardinals and is just an all-around great guy. It's really curious to me. It's not curious to me that the left is reducing religion down to something relatively superficial like race. That is par for the course. It is curious to me that all of these secular liberals care about who the Pope is. Isn't that kind of weird? Sweet little Elisa was making this point to me last night. Shouldn't all these women on The View, none of whom appear to practice Catholicism or any religion, shouldn't they all just think the Pope is a crazy person? The Pope, who is claiming this special role from God where he wears all of these interesting clothes and he claims a kind of universal spiritual authority. Shouldn't the libs on The View think this guy's a total lunatic? Why are they so concerned with it? Why does everyone care about the Pope? Why has the Pope been the main thing that everyone's been talking about for at least a week now? One of the main things people have been talking about for many, many centuries now. What's that about? No other religion has that. Judaism doesn't have that. Protestantism doesn't have that. Eastern Orthodoxy doesn't have that. Hinduism doesn't have that. Buddhism doesn't have that. Buddhism sort of has the Dalai Lama, but he's not like the Pope. He's not this totally unifying figure. And a lot of what he does is just kind of vague humanitarianism and, I don't know, waving his Rolex in commercials or something. He doesn't. No other group has this. It's just the Catholic Church. Almost as if the Pope is the vicar of Christ and a deliberate sign of unity of the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Almost. I don't know. And everyone cares about that and recognizes that to some level, even the ladies on The View. I don't know. Anyway, so enough about the Pope. One additional quick point on religion. Joe Rogan just had a great episode in which Joe was mocking atheists and atheists' condescension to religious people.
That there's always been something. Well, wouldn't it be crazy if there wasn't something at one point in time? That seems even crazier. Then there always has been something. Because if it's just something, if it's just the nature of everything, there is always something, right? Right. It couldn't be nothing and then all of a sudden everything. That seems...
Because what started that? What kicked that off?
Exactly.
What snapped its fingers?
That's McKenna's great line. Terrence McKenna had a great line about the difference between science and religion is that science only asks you for one miracle. I want you to believe in one miracle, the Big Bang.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's a great line. Yeah. It's because it really is true. Yes. And it's funny because people would be incredulous about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but yet they're convinced that the entire universe was smaller than the head of a pin, and for no reason that anybody's adequately explained to me that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
instantaneously became everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't buy that.
I'm sticking with Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus makes more sense.
I love this take, and Joe Rogan is very, very good at this. He's got a little bit of the Norm Macdonald trick, which is he speaks in a way that's so down to earth, that's so simple to understand. He kind of seems just like a regular guy, but he's expressing ideas often that are actually pretty complex. He's saying, science, the difference between science and religion, it only asks you to believe in one miracle, but it's still a miracle. How are you supposed to explain how everything came from nothing or came from this infinitesimally small singularity? How are you going to... I don't know, bro. I'm sticking with Jesus. What a great line. What I love so much about this exchange is, I love the ideas. I like that the ideas are getting out there, but really what distinguishes this exchange is the vibe shift. Some of you listening out there, you Zoomers and you Gen Alpha, you're not going to remember what the millennials and the Gen X and the boomers are going to remember, which is that 20 years ago, for most of the past 25, 30 years, atheists were the cool, preening, condescending, like hip, smart guys. And religious people were the butt of the joke. And then that totally flipped. And the way it flipped now is you get Joe Rogan being like, yeah, so your explanation, atheists, is totally stupid. It's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You make yourselves look like a joke. You're completely ridiculous. I'm sticking with Jesus. Jesus makes more sense. That's the killer line right there. You come out of the 2000s where you have Christopher Hitchens and Bill Maher was part of this and Richard Dawkins said, well, you know, I don't believe in a flying spaghetti monster. As if anyone believes in that. I don't believe in a man with a beard in the sky. And you think, no, you're a pyromaniac in a field of straw men, to quote George Will. All of this condescension. And now that's flipped. And Joe Rogan, he goes, yeah. I think actually your explanation, it's totally unsatisfying. I'm sticking with Jesus. Jesus makes more sense. It's the vibe shift that you get out of the meme of atheists not being these really smart, posh, free-thinking, rational people, but the meme of atheists as unkempt, unhygienic, fedora-tipping, Reddit-using losers. That's the vibe shift. I'm not even talking about the substance of the arguments, even though all of the evidence is on the side of the religious people, none of the evidence is on the side of the atheists. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the vibe shift. The same kind of vibe shift that 20 years ago would have had a person who identifies as a Republican be the butt of jokes, the stupid person, the bigoted person, the person without any friends, the person who's angry all the time. Total vibe shift. Now we're the cool guys. We got one of the biggest pop culture stars in the world is our president. All the cool guys are on the Trump team now. All the scolds and the angry people and the self-serious people and the weirdos. They're the left now. Just complete vibe shift. It has to do with the substance, but it's a little bit distinct too. Now, speaking of Trump, you know, he loves to put his name in gold everywhere. I want to tell you about Birch Gold. I need you to text Knowles to 989898. This July, there is a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro, the bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran. They're meeting with the goal of displacing the US dollar as the global currency. They're calling it the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, global demand for US dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition will not happen overnight, the Rio Reset in July marks a pivotal moment when BRICS objectives move decisively from theoretical possibility toward reality. Learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting my name Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, to 989898. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S, to 989898 today. Speaking of moral issues, the Libs have become so morally confused, so politically confused, they are now quibbling over the definition of genocide on CNN. You know, there's this initiative from the Trump White House to say, all right, we've taken in zillions of refugees in recent years. The vast majority of them are not actually refugees. They're economic migrants from Latin America whom the Democrats have imported contrary to the law because they think that they're going to give the Democrats an electoral majority permanently. So now we're looking around the world and there actually is a group of people that is being persecuted by its government, by its countrymen, being and killed en masse, and that is the white people in South Africa, the Afrikaners. So we're going to let a small number of them in. I think it's something like 58 or 59 people at the moment. The largest number we would let in is something like 70,000 who have applied. We're talking about 50, 60 people right now. And the Democrats on CNN are so opposed to letting in a handful, a few dozen white people from South Africa, that they are now trying to redefine genocide.
We have a refugee program.
I am sure there's been violence against one side of the
There has been violence. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I want to make a point. Violence does not equal genocide.
That's
so
right.
We need to be really, really clear about that. Because if you look
at
the
dead guy, you may not say that.
No, I would say that, actually. Because if you look at what genocide is, it is very specific that you're trying to get rid of a people, a whole group of people. There is violence in South Africa. They've had a very big uptick in violence. But black people have seen the brunt of that violence.
Okay.
Not just
Then let me ask this question of the panel.
Okay, I just want you to know violence does not equal genocide. No one claimed that violence equals genocide. The claim was that white South Africans face a legitimate threat of genocide. Not because people are violent in Johannesburg, but because the two leading parties in South Africa, two of the biggest political parties in the country, regularly chant, kill the Boer, kill the farmer, shoot to kill, yat, yat, yat. That's why. It's not even just the violence that actually occurs, though there is a lot of it. It is that there is a program at the highest levels of the South African political order to kill the white farmers because they're white. That's why. Well, I don't know. Does that really qualify as genocide? Hey, folks, I'm old enough to remember when the liberal media, when these kinds of people accused me of genocide because I said that men shouldn't go into the women's bathroom. You remember that? A few years ago, 2-3 years ago, I gave a speech at CPAC. I said, for the good of everyone, you got to stop letting fellas into the girls' bathroom. It's not good for the guys who are sexually accused. It's not good for the girls. It's not good for anybody. I was accused of genocide by the Human Rights Campaign, the LGBT, the Gestapo organization. I was accused of genocide by The Daily Beast, very prominent left-wing magazine. I was accused of genocide by Rolling Stone, very prominent left-wing magazine. I was accused of genocide. What was the other outlet? Oh, the UK Independent. I was accused of genocide. This is just the first 4 that popped up on Google when I searched it up. So say that fellas shouldn't go into the ladies' bathroom, you're committing a genocide. Call to exterminate all the white people in South Africa, shoot to kill the Boer, get. Not genocide, really? I mean, when you really think about the wording, are we sure? These are the same people. These are the same people making this argument. And it's not just the CNN panel. It is the libs almost uniformly, Don Lemon, going off on how accepting even a handful of white South Africans as legitimate refugees is racist.
This South African farmer bullshit, which is the most blatantly obvious racist ever. It is blatantly obvious the way that we treat white South Africans, who are, by the way, for the most part, and I am generalizing here, some of the wealthiest people are well-to-do people in the country. They speak their language. They own most of the land and the property. And somehow they're being granted a fast track to become Americans while they're trying to cut down on immigration from other countries. You know, you get that from where? From the brown people.
Okay, so Joe Biden can take in millions of Democrats over the last 10 years, take in millions of people that they call refugees who are not refugees pretty much the whole time. They're economic migrants. But as long as they're at least a little bit dusky, just have a touch swarthy, totally fine. That's good. It's actually our obligation. Because, what do we mean by refugee? I mean, if you don't have a Lamborghini, you're kind of a refugee, right? I mean, they might not be actually persecuted, but they need to come here. They're refugees. If you disapprove of that, you're a horrible person. White people who, even if some of them do have some money, are being and targeted by their government, that's not going to work for us. You take in 10 million brown people. That's good. That's wonderful. That's great. You take in like 3 or 4 dozen white people. No, that's terribly racist. It's awful. You can't do it. So clear here that Don Lemon either has or is pretending to have a true animosity toward white people. Don Lemon used to, in the early days of his career at CNN, he used to seem more reasonable and moderate. He wasn't one of these race hustlers. And then, I don't know, CNN broke him or they forced him to take on that character. And now he's going all the way, saying one should take in an unlimited number of brown people as refugees, even if they're not refugees. But one should not even take in 50 white people. That 50 is too much. Al Sharpton on MSNBC, same thing.
So we're bringing in white Afrikaners who we don't know if they're criminal. We don't know this, what they went through in the legal process in South Africa.
Hold on. We're bringing in Afrikaners. We don't know if they're criminal. Now, they are being vetted. But even consider the broader context of this. Al Sharpton, who is perfectly fine with millions of unvetted people who are by definition criminals crossing the border illegally and doing so with the help of cartels, some of the worst criminals on earth. That's totally fine. But the white Afrikaners who are being vetted, who are coming here legally through a refugee program, one of them might have committed a crime that was never registered in South Africa. And so because we're so tough on crime now, we got to keep them out. Millions of actual criminals, by definition criminal, that's totally fine. It's just, he just hates white people. That's it. Or even if they don't have a personal hatred of white people, which I think they do, but even if they don't, they at least think what they've been telling us for years, which is they think that brown people are going to be more likely to vote for Democrats, so they want the brown people, and they think white people are going to be more likely to vote for Republicans, and they don't want the white people because of that. And that's a little complicated because Trump has actually done much better with Hispanic and black voters. But nevertheless, the broad trends still hold. So I guess that's it. It's either that or they just go all the way and they hate white people. Because what is going on in South Africa is the threat of genocide. It actually has nothing to do with the actual rates of the white South Africans do take place and take place extensively. The reason that they face a threat of genocide is because their biggest political parties sing this at their political rallies. This would be as if you had Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg walking out at a political rally saying, shoot the Republicans, shoot them in their head, watch them bleed out on the ground. Or even if you took it out of a political context or an ideological context, you'd say, go out and behead the redheads, shoot them all, eat their brains. But it's instead of just some random weirdo on TikTok, it's like one of the leaders of the Democrat Party. That's what white people are looking at in South Africa. That if that ain't genocide, I know the libs are really into redefining words. I wrote a whole book on it, actually. It's called Speechless. But thank you. But if that's not the threat of genocide, what is? Can someone please define it for me? You need to go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles. You've heard me talk about Balance of Nature many times. That is because Balance of Nature fruits and veggies is the most convenient way to get whole fruits and vegetables daily, especially if you're focused on creating a healthier, happier lifestyle. Nature is pretty good at giving us the nutrients that we need through our fruits and veggies. So, Balance of Nature takes fruits and vegetables, freeze dries them, turns them into a powder, then puts them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, then your body knows what to do with them. Balance of Nature is just one ingredient of a balanced lifestyle, has no intention to replace a healthy diet, exercise, sleep, or any other healthy habits. It is intended to be used in concert with other healthy habits. Right now, you need to be like many people around the office and go embrace Balance of Nature. Mr. Davies, who I've mentioned before, is kind of a beefcake. He loves Balance of Nature. We all love Balance of Nature. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Knowles, KNWLAS, for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer. Right now, you will get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That is balanceofnature.com, promo code Knowles. One last point on how much the libs in America just absolutely hate white South Africans. Mr. Davies made the point before the show. The liberals in America might possibly hate the white South Africans even more than they hate innocent little babies who were conceived unintentionally. They really don't like these people. A prominent liberal TikToker, her name is Your Favorite Corporate Auntie. She has over 100,000 followers on TikTok. She threatened to murder the white South African refugees if they make it here.
Good morning. This is for the South Africans who are going to be entering the United States. This is just a public service announcement. I just wanted to make you aware that the Black people who were students during apartheid, we're grandmas and grandpas now, and we have the ear of Gen Z. One more thing. I also want to let you know that our president, he has Secret Service, and you will not. I also want to tell you that Black people over here are empowered. These are just public service announcements. When you get here, sit your ass down and don't touch nothing. Because you don't have Secret Service. Okay. Now have the day you deserve.
All right. Well, glad to see this. If for no other reason than we have finally found one group of migrants, one group of marginalized people that the left does not like. Finally, it's taken decades. We found it. It's white people. Okay. All right. That's fine. Speaking of violence, President Trump has just inked a $142 billion arms deal in Saudi Arabia. This is, I believe, the biggest arms deal ever in history. This is part of a broader $600 billion deal with Saudi Arabia that Trump signed at the start of his Middle East tour. Now, the deal with Saudi Arabia is going to irritate another power in the Middle East. That would be Iran. And this was not lost on Trump. Trump made this point explicitly. He said, if Iran rejects an olive branch, we will have no choice but to inflict massive maximum pressure, drive Iranian exports to zero, and take all action required to stop the regime from having a nuclear weapon. Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. As you know, Saudi Arabia and Iran don't get along that well. But you know who does get along well with Iran? Qatar. But Trump, just yesterday and the day before, was talking about how excited he is to receive a free jet that can be used as Air Force One from the Qatari royal family. So hold on. I was just told 2 days ago that Trump is a stooge for Iran. Now I'm being told that Trump is antagonizing Iran because he's inking the biggest arms deal ever in history with Saudi Arabia. Before that, I was told that Trump is betraying Israel. He's turned his back on the state of Israel. But before that, I was told that Trump is a total stooge for the state of Israel, even has a town named after himself there. What is going on? This is the true meaning of America First. This is what Trump means by America First. Maybe it's not what everybody means by America First, going back to Charles Lindbergh or any time in the 100 years since then. But this is what Trump means by America First. America First is not, as its critics would deride it, isolationism. Trump is not an isolationist. Trump personally has properties all over the world and has for 20 years or more. America First does not mean isolationism, as the critics would have it. America First does not mean hyper-nationalism. In some ways, Trump is an imperialist. In many ways, he wants to acquire Greenland. He wants to acquire Canada. He wants to take back the Panama Canal. He has a global vision. He recognizes that America has interests. This is what America First means to Trump, in my humble and correct opinion. America First means pursuing the American interest, even when it conflicts with the interests of allies. America First means not being beholden to any of America's partners around the world. It doesn't mean not having partners around the world. We have great partners. We have great alliances. We have great alliances with Saudi Arabia and the State of Israel, for instance, just to use these two examples. But we can also work with Qatar, and we can also extend an olive branch to Iran. We can even extend an olive branch to Kim Jong-un, for goodness sakes. We don't need to constantly be at the throat of Vladimir Putin, but we can stand strong against Vladimir Putin when we like it. It means pursuing America's interest and not being totally beholden to the interests of another nation. It is what George Washington told us to do. Washington and Thomas Jefferson, for that matter, to avoid entangling alliances. Not to avoid alliances, not to avoid working with people. The American Revolution would not have been won without an alliance with France. The old regime of France, not the head-chopping, liberal, crazy, radical regime that soon followed. You need some alliances. You need to recognize that there is a global vision. We do all live on one Earth. But you need to avoid those entangling alliances that will force you to compromise your own national interest in order to follow along with the line of some supposed ally. Is Trump on the side of the Qataris or on the side of the Israelis? Is he on the side of the Iranians or on the side of the Saudi Arabians? He's on the side of America. This actually reminds me of a great clip from John Bolton. I know John Bolton has fallen out of favor on the American right, certainly with Trump supporters. But there's a great line of his decades prior where he's speaking at the UN. And he says, there is no such thing as United Nations. There is the international community, and there is the interest of the United States. And sometimes those things intersect, and we're happy to work together when they do. But we're going to pursue the interest of the United States. And frankly, you could obliterate 3 floors of the UN building in New York, wouldn't make a lick of difference. Certainly not to us. That is Trump's vision. Now, speaking of deals, Joe Biden is considering a $30 million book deal. A publisher wants to pay Joe Biden $30 million to write a book. I'm sorry I didn't warn you to pull over before I told you that. Because Joe Biden, at this point, almost certainly cannot write his own name. Joe Biden might not remember what his name is, but he's going to take $30 million to write a book. Obviously, he's not going to write a book. Maybe his wife would write the book. She is a doctor after all. Maybe they just hire a ghostwriter. He's not going to write the book. Who's going to write it? What's the point of a book? The political memoir of this guy who's been in politics for 50 years. The tell-all, his family's quite corrupt. People are interested in his family's corruption. What's the point if he's not going to write it? It's just a payoff. It's a payoff for doing his part, being a Democrat, punching the clock every day, finally getting out of the race. This is his payoff. This is his version of the Barack Obama $20 million Netflix deal. Republicans don't get $20 million Netflix deals. Liberal politicians do. It's part of the patronage system that allows the Democrat machine to continue to operate. All right, you're going to leave office now, but don't worry. We'll get you on the back end. Don't worry. Thanks for doing your part. Joe Biden couldn't write his own stuff 40 years ago. He had to get out of the 1988 presidential race because he couldn't write his own speeches. You telling me now at age 150, when he's been in dementia for 10 years, you think now he's going to write a book? I don't think so. This is, as we often see, a payoff to loyal Democrats. Democrats are more or less admitting this already. Democrats have come out, spurred on by a book that Jake Tapper wrote, to explain how Joe Biden really was losing his marbles in the White House, and there was a massive cover-up. Here is NBC News reporting on just how bad Joe Biden was looking in his final months in the White House.
According to an excerpt from the new book obtained by NBC News, it was, quote, obvious to many at a fundraiser last summer that then President Biden did not know who George Clooney was, even though they were longtime acquaintances, and Clooney is one of the most famous men in the world. The book, by journalists Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, goes on to say former President Obama, who was also at the event, had to hop in and finish sentences for Biden during photo ops. In separate excerpts, the authors write that Biden would forget the names of longtime aides and that there were internal discussions about putting the president in a wheelchair in a second term.
Okay, so Jake Tapper, one of the most prominent liberal journalists, writes this book. Wow, Joe Biden really was totally in the throes of dementia. He couldn't recognize the people around him. He couldn't recognize some of the most famous people in the world who've helped him for many years. And wow, that's so interesting to get that book in 2025. But do you remember back when Joe Biden was still the Democrat nominee during the presidential race? Do you remember what the NBC News Corporation was saying then? We're talking about the same news corporation. We turned from Lester Holt on NBC to Joe Scarborough on MSNBC. Here's what they were saying when it counted.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, I don't know if people know this or not, Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it. And
that's the same news organization. Yeah, he was drooling, and they were going to throw him in a wheelchair, and he couldn't recognize his closest aides, and he didn't know who George Clooney was. Not only one of the most famous movie stars in the world, but also a top Democrat supporter. But back when it counted, we are always the best Biden ever. What are you talking about? I'm glad that Jake Tapper is trying to sell some books, because it's just a reminder. The liberal media will sometimes tell you the truth when it no longer matters. Sometimes. They will never tell you the truth when the truth is contrary to their political interests when it counts. That will never, ever happen. This book, I might have to buy a copy of Jake Tapper's book, because the book might as well be titled, Never Believe Us Ever. We are scheming liars. We have no credibility. You should never, under any circumstances, believe us, by Jake Tapper. Now, what you should do is go to thecandleclub.com and get my Sicilian Summer candle. The Sicilian Summer's back, baby. Speaking of swarthy people of mixed racial background, the delightful fan favorite has returned to the Candle Club by popular demand. Make your atmosphere delectably citrusy coastal once more. Transport yourself to those warm rays and golden sands. Supply is extremely limited. Do not miss your chance to get your hands on one of these, because they will sell out. Go to thecandleclub.com to get yours today. Thecandleclub.com. If you're tired of the endless media lies, like you're a bigot, if you don't want violent illegal aliens living on your block, it's time to join us. DailyWire Plus members get ad-free access to the best conservative news and commentary. Members get access to our award-winning investigative journalism that exposes the government corruption the mainstream media refuse to touch. And you will get our premium entertainment library, films and documentaries that break the box office, shift the culture, and say what no one else will. The fight for our country is happening right now. Be a part of it at dailywire.com/subscribe. My favorite comment yesterday is from Michael Shuey06, who writes, saying LGBTQ plus Catholic is like saying conservative Democrat. That is truer, perhaps even than you intend it to be. It's like that in as much as, while technically possible, it's mostly incoherent. There used to be conservative Democrats. Even in recent memory, you still had Joe Manchin. It's not that it was totally impossible, but it just didn't make a lot of sense. Same goes for LGBT, LMNOP Catholic. You could have had that identity at some point. You could have that predilection or whatever. But it doesn't make any sense. If you're going to embrace the LGBT, LMNOP identity, then go do that. Go do that and accept all of the various pagan or Gnostic ideas that go along with it, which are contradicted by the Catholic faith. Or if you're going to be Catholic, then ditch the LGBT, LMNOP identity. But don't be Joe Manchin. Come on, man, make some sense. Pick a side. Don't be lukewarm. Speaking of young people, I don't know, the future of the Democrat Party, we got to pour one out. I'm going to pour you. I'm going to pour a little tiny, just a little bit, just a little. There, I don't want to mess up my desk too much. I'm going to pour a little one out for David Hogg. David Hogg, the former future of the Democrat Party, currently the vice chairman of the Democrat Party, he's getting pushed out by his party. David Hogg, you will recall, first came to political prominence when he took the opportunity of a school shooting at his high school to go on every cable news channel possible and recite left-wing talking points about gun rights. And this helped to launch him to Harvard, even though academically he didn't appear to be totally qualified for that. And then that helped launch him into Democrat politics. He moved on from his putative issue, the single issue about guns, to the future of the Democrat Party. And he actually got himself elected vice chairman of the DNC, but he's been a disaster in that role already. And he's threatening to upend party precedent by spending $20 million to primary Democrats. The party organization is not really supposed to get involved in primaries. It's supposed to get involved in the general elections to beat the Republicans. So the Democrats are going to throw him out. It reveals an irony of the Democrat Party, which close observers have noticed for many years now, which is that it is much less democratic than the Republican Party. The Democrat Party has all sorts of mechanisms to undermine the will of its own constituents. Things like superdelegates that could override the will of voters during primaries. Things like these mechanisms here to void the election of David Hogg, to boot him out because he's such a disaster. Now, I'm not even knocking the Democrats for this. I don't think that it would be better for them if they were more democratic and gave more power to the people, because their people are totally crazy. especially the party activists. I don't mean everyone who's ever identified as a Democrat is totally crazy, but I mean the real party activists are nuts, man, and they lost the popular vote and they lost the common sense. So you don't want those people to have more control over your party because then you're never going to win an election again. So it's very much in the party's interest to be able to control the insane impulses of its radical base. But this reveals another aspect of the Democrats in 2025. Namely, they just want to destroy stuff. David Hogg is a problem for the Democrats, but he's a microcosm of the Democrats' bigger problem, which is that the Democrats just want to destroy stuff. David Hogg gets himself elected to the Democrat Party. He can advance a vision of the whole party, one of the two major parties in the U.S., and probably the more powerful party over the last century. And what does he do? He decides he's going to attack Democrats, and he's going to tear down the party establishment, and he's going to go after the elected Democrats, and he's going to just destroy stuff. That's a problem for the party and their right to throw him out. But that's America's problem with the Democrats. The Democrats just want to destroy stuff. They want to tear down statues of the men who built our country. They want to tear down our history. They want to tear down our self-confidence. They want to tear down the ballasts of our economy. They want to tear down our borders and our walls. They want to tear down our families. They want to tear down the definition of marriage. They want to tear down our babies and slaughter them in the womb. They want to just destroy stuff. And they don't have anything to replace it with. So the feeling of revulsion that the Democrat Party is feeling toward one of its own, David Hogg right now, is totally legit. But the Democrat Party should recognize that's the same revulsion, that's the same rational revulsion that we feel against elected Democrats, because we realize that they present a threat to the whole political order. They only want to destroy stuff. And look, there is a time for destroying stuff, but they don't seem to have anything to replace it with. They want to tear down George Washington, but who are they going to replace him with? They want to tear down our walls. What are they going to replace them with? They want to tear down our families. What are they going to replace it with? It's just criticism and destruction and corrosion all the way down. So just as the party wants to protect itself from David Hogg, we want to protect ourselves from elected Democrats. That's how Trump won the popular vote in 2024. Speaking of young people, really, really excellent news. Much too late, but we'll take the win where we can get it. One of the most notorious late-term abortionists is closing up shop, specifically because of a decline in demand. So you know how the Democrats tell you late-term abortion doesn't happen? That is a lie. You don't need to take my word for it. You can take the word of a late-term abortionist. One of the most famous in the country, his name is Dr. Warren Henn. He has the Boulder Abortion Clinic. He is shutting down. I figured he was shutting down because he's an old man. He's 87 years old. He said no. He said, it became impossible to continue, but closing is one of the most painful decisions of my life. Mr. Hearn, Dr. Hearn, does not kill babies who are 3 days old, 10 days old, 2 weeks old, even 10 weeks old. That would be bad enough. That would be evil enough. This guy pretty much only kills babies who are 28 weeks old and older. These are babies who easily could live outside the womb. These are babies who, if they were delivered and given up for adoption, they'd go on to live perfectly happy lives. And Dr. Hearn's raison d'etre is to go into work every day and murder those babies who look like babies, who move like babies, those two facts shouldn't affect our understanding of their human dignity, but they often do in people's perception. These are just babies, okay? He goes in and kills them. Hearn estimates that at least half, and sometimes more, of the women who come to him are not doing so because they face a health threat by continuing to have the baby. They're not doing so because their children are diagnosed with Down syndrome or something. Often those diagnoses are false. Perhaps most of the time they're false. But even further, we shouldn't be killing people. That's wrong. It's an evil view to have, and that is the mainstream view of Democrats, that we should murder people or people who have any kind of intellectual disability. And they would yell at me for using the word. They would say it's wrong to say the word, but it is good to murder people for being. Even if you're not using the word in an insulting way, I'm obviously not. I'm using it in a very clinical way. They would say, no, it's wrong to use this word in any technical sense. Totally fine to murder these people, though. This guy says that this late-term abortionist says the majority of the late-term abortions that he performs, it's not even because of those reasons. It's just women who want to murder their perfectly healthy grown kids. They just want to murder them because they're... This guy is going out of business. This guy who, not to put too fine a point on it, he has performed sex-selective abortions. He's murdered babies, late-term babies, because women go in, they say, I really wanted a girl, not a boy. Can you murder my son? And then maybe I'll try again. My like fully formed son. Can you murder him? I don't want a boy. I only like girls. I hate men. I hate people with intellectual disabilities. I hate babies. I hate whatever. He's going out of business. He says, many women have difficulty paying for the expensive late-term abortions, $10,000, obviously not covered by insurance, usually not covered by insurance, I should say. But the economy's doing fine. Is it just because the economy's had a downturn? This guy's been performing abortions for decades. No. He said it's because donations are also decreasing. He said it's because the overall support for abortion is decreasing. He said, I had to make a decision, really. You knew, sort of on the basis of the situation at the moment, that we couldn't continue. It was very, very painful. I see this as my personal failure, that he will not be able to kill any more almost fully grown babies at the age of 87. What should we do? We should pray for this guy. We should pray for all of his many, many victims. We should hope that he has some redemption. But every tear that this guy sheds for not being able to murder any more babies, I want to lap it up. I want to lap up that tear. This guy should be dog walked into a prison where at the very least he should spend the rest of his life in prison. Probably he's deserving of a much more serious punishment. But at the very least, we can celebrate that the culture is turning, that the demand for this stuff, it seems to have peaked, that we're having a major vibe shift. That's good. We'll take the wins when we can get them. Today is Woke Wednesday. The rest of the show continues now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, Canada, BLES at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.